Welcome to the Obvious Leadership Podcast, where we dive into practical leadership insights that are, well, obvious. Your hosts have walked the talk, and now they're sharing their knowledge, strategies, and advice. Let's jump into today's episode and explore the world of leadership with your hosts, Joey and Omar.
Well, good news, right? It's starting to cool down. I know we talk about this every single morning. For y'all that don't know, we have just started July, and it's been a scorcher for the last 10 days or so.
Oh man, yeah, it's been 100+ degrees, and then not talking about the index. Ooh, it's been hot.
Yeah, good old Texas has good moisture out in the Houston area, and that index will increase it. If it's 100, you're probably closer to about 110, 120.
Yeah, it's crazy.
No, it is. It is. Any fun stuff happened for you, brother, over the weekend?
Not really, man. I definitely tried to stay inside. Did some reorganizing of a couple rooms with the kids. Oh man, they love doing that. So.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely know what you mean. I've been sore the entire weekend. Friday night, was it Friday? No, Saturday night. After work, I went, met some people up at some bar that has a few volleyball pits because they want to do volleyball as a team building thing. And it was fun. So it's been years since I played volleyball. So I've been feeling it for the last few days.
Yeah, volleyball, it doesn't seem like a high impact sport, but when you're jumping up and down.
Yeah. Especially when you throw sand in the mix. Oof.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But it's actually funny, right? Because that's going to sway me into a conversation. And also to your point, doing things together. If you've been in sales, if you've been in any team environment, you know that doing things outside of what you're consistently doing together, right? Whether it's work, whether it's sports, doing things outside together as a team helps build a better cohesion, right? So as a leader, you want to do things with your team outside of work. I'm not saying you're going to be their BFFs. I'm not saying that's a different topic, but you want to have something that can help solidify, especially if you truly are wanting to look out for the best in your team, right? Because it gets you a better idea of who they are, what is important to them. And it's not necessarily, it's only work. Invite the family, invite their, who's important to them to come together so that you can see and meet everybody and actually get a true understanding of what's helping drive everybody forward. Because you get to know your team better and they get to know you better as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's important, man, because, getting to know somebody on a personal level and knowing what motivates them really can translate to, how they are at work. And also, it just kind of hopefully adjusts your coaching strategy with that person to help them be more successful, right?
No, true. And it's kind of like last episode we talked a lot about how outside factors like music, for instance, how that can affect performance and all that stuff, right? And this is one of those things, because not every time that you underperform, it's going to be because you want to quit or because whatever. It actually could be something high impact outside of your work that is affecting what's going on here. And once again, guys, we don't manage people, we lead people, right? You have to understand what's going on to be able to really say what needs to get done. And sometimes it means you got to, recommend that your guy, that person, your employee, that they take some time away from work to be able to handle personal stuff. Because it's not them taking care of themselves at work when all that stuff is going on. And also it could affect the rest of the morale of the team as well. We're not saying, we're go kick rocks. We're saying we want you to focus on yourself because we understand that that's important and we understand that that's affecting everything else in your life. And we just want to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Right. And it's one of those things. You just got to understand where your team is coming from, and you gotta care for your team. Right. They got to know that you're there looking out for them. Unfortunately, guys, you're your company people. You have to be. You are an extension of the company. That does not mean that you need to trample over your team to get to whatever goals need to get done. You actually will get there faster if you have a team that understands that you support them, that you are trying to look out for their best interest, right?
Right. Well, I mean, honestly, man, I've had co-managers struggle with the fact that, hey, look, we're trying to do something out of work, but people aren't showing up. And that's one of the things that you have to overcome. Like, you can't just think that by planning something it's going to happen and people are going to show up, right?
Yeah. Listen, guys, we're not getting paid to go meet you after work. So if I don't want to see you after work, I don't got to see you after work.
Exactly, man. So you can't be a jerk at work and expect people to come after work to come and meet up with you. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to be cognizant of how you treat people, how you talk to people, the way that the scenarios you put them in, that will ultimately sway their decision one or the other, right? How are they going to be at work, or are they going to be joining one of those out of work functions? You know what I mean?
And it's actually kind of funny that you mentioned it. You mentioned that this a few weeks back on I think it might have been like on my TikTok feed. I saw this creator and they're talking about how some people don't understand when they're getting invited to do something, right? And her skit was pretty much she's trying to invite somebody out to coffee because they're all going as a group to go get coffee. So she says it in a way like, oh, hey, we're going to go get coffee. She doesn't explicitly say like, hey, you want to join us? But, to her, the way she was mentioning it, it was like, it's implied that we want you to join, but you never join, right? But she doesn't say that part. And then the other person's like, I really wish they would invite me. I can't believe they're going to get coffee without me, right? Sometimes, guys, you actually just have to say that direct part. Like, hey, we're going to be doing an event. I'm inviting you to join us, or I want you to join us, right? So people don't understand that, it's that part. It's kind of like asking for the cell, right? Yes, assume you've gotten the cell, but you still need to ask them to sign the paperwork to take the cell.
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, it also is it's not about maybe what you want, right?
Yeah.
So, I like to bowl, right? But the people I work with may not like to bowl, right? So you're not going to schedule a bowling party and nobody wants to go, right? So to be something that's common ground.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where you'll find something, but also ask your team like, hey, if we do something as a group, what would you guys like to do?
Right.
And yeah, you're not going to get everybody going. You're going to get, maybe a small turnout at first, but as you keep going, as you keep having fun, especially when you can bring like your family, those people important to you, to those functions after work, then yeah, you start getting to more of that, we're like a family. Plus, you start getting away from those dreaded pizza parties.
Right. Yeah, pizza doesn't heal anything.
It's a good way to stuff people's feelings down and only just make them more enraged.
That's crazy, man.
So a funny story on that. Many moons ago, right? I had one of my districts, and I was out in San Antonio, and I would do this contest. Like every weekend, I would run some kind of contest, either for like individuals, like, hey, as a team, whoever can hit the highest metric, the highest KPI, you get X, Y, or Z, right? You could choose. And I would do like, you could do, lunch on me, one pizza, right? It'd be, Chipotle or whatever, something else. It'd be like a gas card, like $50 gas card or something like that, right? Or something. And this one time I did a team lunch, right? And I told him, I was like, all right, whichever store hits the highest overall percentage, right? Because you got to make it even, because obviously we talked about this before. Different locations will have different type of traffic.
Right.
So you got to be able to measure things in a way that makes sense. So we did performance percentage. And the store that won it, they were invigorated, and they did really well this weekend, right? So I was like, all right, cool. Decide what you guys want to have for lunch. Let me know when you're ready. And here's the card information to pay for it. Right? No questions asked.
Yeah.
And then I get a text from my bank, and it's like, yeah, $300 has been charged to your card. We just want to make sure. I was like, what?
That was a pizza.
Oh yeah, that was some gourmet pizza stuff right there.
Right. Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was always bad at planning out those things, man. But it's also, like, it's one of the things I would always identify the person that was kind of like the ringleader, if you will, right, of the people at the store or wherever you're at. And I'd kind of work them up to, hey man, do you want to be the person in charge?
Yeah.
Of like putting this together, right? And I'd tell them up front, like, hey, look, if you want to go bowling every weekend, that's what I'm going to put together, right? And I'd make it seem like, hey, look, that's the only thing I want to do. But honestly, they are a little bit more in tune with the people that work for you. They have a little bit more side conversations. They know people a little bit more on a personal level, because they're with them in a different way, right?
Yeah.
And so it always has worked out for me to assign somebody to put those things together. And honestly, like, as soon as we got away from me planning those things, we had a little bit more engagement in those activities.
Yeah, definitely that buy it. Right, bro. It's funny because that goes back to our conversation we had on the first follower. If you guys haven't seen that episode, what was it? Was it last episode or 2 episodes ago?
I think it was 2.
All right. So go check out the last couple of episodes and look, or you can YouTube it, right? But look up the first follower and you'll see what we're talking about. And that bro is a perfect example of what he was talking about in that TED Talk, where it's not you're helping somebody essentially move into that role, and they're following that person because they have a deeper, or they have a better connection with that individual as opposed to you as a leader, right? But they're not going to remember it as, oh, so and so put it together. It's going to be like, okay, Joey put it together. I'm helping out Joey.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've said it many times. It's not all about like what you bring as a skills that you bring, right? It's about what you pull out of people, right? It's about what you pull out of people to bring them up, that brings the other people up, and that y'all move forward together as a team, right? That's what it's about. That's what leading a team is. It's not just about what can I do.
No, and true. And also in that point, because I've had this happen with my leadership, where they like the way the team's cohesive. They like that we get together after work, stuff like that. They're like, yeah, how did you do it? And that's when like, okay, I might have come up with the idea, but you know what? So-and-so is actually the person who helped plan everything together and coordinate it. You want to throw that limelight on the person that actually deserves the credit. Remember, I've mentioned this before. As a leader, you will be blamed for the reason your team doesn't perform. And as a leader, your team will be praised for their performance when they go above and beyond.
Right.
So you have to put your team above you, and you also have to shield your team. And that's the way leadership is. So when you start doing that, you start seeing a lot of different things, because now that person starts getting a little bit more limelight and attention from leadership, which they're going to appreciate, and the rest of your team is also going to see that. And that's going to want them to want to step up and take, a stronger role in leadership. But you have to open up those venues, and you can't always you got to delegate. You got to go back to learn how to delegate things to others and not always put everything on yourself as a leader. Because, I mean, Joey, you've mentioned this before. When you do that, you just don't got time. Like, you literally, and you're going to fall back on everything else. And it's going to be the small, unimportant stuff that'll start to bog you down from the really important things that you need to get taken care of.
Yeah, well, we've mentioned it before, man. Time management, right? Because if you do everything and you're trying to do everything, you're not managing your time effectively. And that's, honestly, like I said, that's one of the things I learned early on, just because I was trying to do everything myself. I mean, I was a young leader. I thought that I needed to have control in everything, and that if I did it, everything was going to be done better. But I soon realized, hey, man, it's not about what I can do. It's about getting everybody on the same page, right, to get things done.
No, and that's, as a leader, especially if you're in sales. Have you heard the saying before? Leading salespeople is like trying to herd cats.
Okay.
Have you ever heard that before?
No.
So, like, the idea, right, is good salespeople are used to being independent. They don't need a lot of oversight, right? And when you start trying to really micromanage them, they don't like to work together essentially as a whole. Now, obviously, that's not true, but it gives you an idea of what it's like trying to get a group of people to move in the same direction when you're not leading the correct way. Because when you're leading the correct way, it goes from you leading to them believing, right?
Yeah.
Because they believe they can get it done. You're guiding them in that direction, and you're helping enforce what's going to make them successful, as opposed to, oh yeah, you're doing a crap job of this, you're doing a crap job at that, right? There's different ways to manage. You just don't want to be known as that manager that always shits on people.
Right.
You're not going to want people moving to your stores or your districts. I used to get mad because I used to get people calling me like from out of state. Like, so I got an employee who they want to see if they can transfer into your district. I'm like, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, so a lot of thoughts were going through my head whenever you said herding cats, right? I'm like, oh, there's a cat stuck in a tree somewhere, right? And there's one cat who likes to flee and jump over the fence. But honestly, that's how some salespeople are, right? I mean, that's just the temperament of some people. But what I came to settle on was that even if you're in a commission sales environment, right? It depends on what sales environment. Maybe sometimes it's a team sales environment, right? That y'all need to meet as a team. But also there's those environments where it's like commission sales, right? Moving together as a team is more important than one individual exceeding everybody, right? I mean, I really don't like the saying, but you're only as good as your weakest link, right? I mean, if level up everybody, then that forces everybody's level to be increased, right? And I strongly believe in that.
No, 100% true right there. And that's a conversation I've always had with all of the leaders I've had in my teams, right? So all the store managers, all the assistant managers. And I would explain to them, I was like, listen, guys, yes, we have some very strong performers in our market, but compare them to the rest of our team, right? So say we have a team of like 50 people in the district, right? My top performers might be 10% of that. So 5 out of 45 people are far and above, exceeding well above everybody else. If they increase their performance 10, 20%, is that really going to be that much more impactful compared to maybe getting the bottom 50 percentile to increase their production 10 to 30%, right? If the bottom 50 percentile is our base mark, imagine if we get to train them to the point where they're hitting above, even if it's marginal, even if it's 5 to 10% above quota consistently.
Yeah.
If we can increase that, right? Going back to that, just being 1% better every day
than
you were before, that becomes a much bigger impact to the bottom line.
Right.
Compared to just getting the top 5 people to try to perform, because they might already be redlining their performance, right? They might be already trying to go on all cylinders, and it's going to be very tough for them to try to hit, or go above and beyond even more.
Yeah.
Maybe in your industry,
Yeah.
right?
Well, on top of that, right? So
Uh-huh.
this goes back, if you're the person in charge of looking at those numbers and looking at different teams and what they're doing, right? You have to be in tuned with the different traffic that is going to those different stores, to those different departments, right? Because we talked about this before, right? And if it's your top performer, do we know if those interactions are kind of gifted to them? So let's say that there's 20 people walking into this store, and then there's 5 people walking into this store, but the people that have 5 people walking into this store are at 80%, and the people that have 20 people walking in are at 110%. Like, I mean, I think the people that have 20 opportunities need to be coached more than the people that have 5 opportunities.
No, I gotcha. Yeah, especially if like you're talking the close rates that they're getting, right?
Right.
And to your point, yes, as if you're a district, if you're an area manager, if you're a regional, you need to be in tune with the type of traffic that your locations are getting,
Right.
because that's going to help you as a leader have those conversations with your direct leader, right? Especially when they start going through, because you're going to have those calls like, all right, so Joey, explain to me what's going on in your market, right? And hey, you got 5, 8 locations, 6 of them are performing on par, other 2 are underperforming. One of them might be a brand new location or have construction going around it. The other one might be in a location where traffic is dying down, and you need to start having that conversation of, listen, either we need to find a way to increase traffic to support this location,
Right.
or we need to start talking about either relocating this location or closing it down if we cannot find something viable.
Yeah.
And those you have to be in charge of your business at that point, right? So it gets to a level where you're no longer just managing your people and managing the performance. You need to also understand the ramifications of the business and making and suggesting the right business decisions for your team. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense. Like one of the locations I had was a mall location in a mall that was actually a dying mall, right? So not only is traffic getting slower, the quality of traffic is actually getting worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because the mall is not known anymore for being a good mall. I think it had like a 60% occupancy rate, like a ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, so we need to have that conversation. Like, this store is going to continue to underperform. And what sucks as a leader in that position is when you have locations that underperform, headcount starts to go down. And when headcount starts to go down, you don't have the coverage to be able to do outside things, right? To drive traffic in. So it starts becoming a double-edged sword as a leader when you have that. So you need to have those conversations. Like, we either got to find a way to increase traffic, or we got to be real about what's going on with this particular location. And you got to find out. Now, in the business I was in, they didn't necessarily want to close it down.
Yeah.
Because the way wireless retail works, if you guys don't understand this, it could be a very lucrative business because you get paid on all the activations that stick from that location over time. So even though right now it's not performing, it's still essentially a money maker for the organization. And the question becomes, when is that no longer a true money maker and we really need to close it out, right?
Right.
So if you're wondering why some business decisions are not made or don't make sense as a leader, it's because you don't understand the underlying fundamentals of how your business or your industry works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talking about underlying fundamentals, right? So I think that when you look at those stores that may not have a lot of traffic, we think about some of the external things that we can't control that are affecting our traffic, right? But also it boils down to some of the organic things that the team may or may not be doing to drive internal traffic, right? So we talk about things like asking for referrals, right? Or simple customer service, right? Maybe those could be some of the people that don't like to perform customer service, which means that the people don't have a good experience, which means they're not talking about, this to their family and friends that will bring more traffic in.
Oh yeah.
Right. So you got to focus on not just the external, but also the internal. What can you be doing to drive that traffic in?
For you guys listening, here's a little tidbit that will help you, especially, and at this point, I expect everybody listening on these calls to have some form of CRM where you are managing your clients, whether it's, managing the receipts and has their contact information, whatever the case is. If y'all don't know this, most states, and I think it's across the nation, you actually have a time period where if you've done business, even if they're on the do not call, because you've done business, you are allowed to call. But if they tell you, all right, we don't want you to reach out to us anymore, then yes, place them on your internal do not call list, right?
Right.
But don't call these people asking for sales or promotions. You want your the people on the other line to feel as though you care for them, and you do want to care for them. You want to make sure everything is good. Because for me, reputation has always been big. And I want to make sure that my customers and my clients are taken care of. So I want to do those follow-ups. So like, hey, just want to make sure everything is good with your service. And that's what I would teach my guys. I would tell them, make 5 to 10 calls a day if it's slow. Spread them out. These calls are not going to take more than 5 minutes max per call. And that's going to be if you can get somebody on the phone. Most of the time when you call somebody, I know you guys know this because I do this all the fucking time. If I get a call and I don't know that phone number, I'm not going to answer if it's on my personal. If it's my business work, hey, that phone's designed to get calls from referrals, stuff like that. So yeah, that one's going to get picked up. My personal, yeah, that one's not going to get picked up. But you got that number. All they got to do is dial. Hey, this is this is Omar calling from XYZ. Just wanted to follow up, just see if everything's going well with your service, with your product, whatever it is that you guys do, right? Just if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call back at XXX, blah, 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 or come in and see me. Also, by the way, I did want to let you know that you may qualify for, XYZ promotion.
Yeah.
And leave it at that. You never want to tell somebody that they do qualify. You never want to tell them that they can get this. You want to say you may. Your verbiage is very important because that will intrigue some people, right? And that could be like, hey, you may qualify for a lower monthly service plan. You may qualify for additional benefits at the same price. You may, whatever the case is. And obviously you should have an idea because you can take a look at that receipt and see what they had for that service or whatever it is that they're using. And you should be able to kind of get an idea, okay, maybe if they haven't changed anything, maybe we will be able to recalculate this. But it's a way to get more opportunities in with no traffic from your previous clientele in the last 12 to 18 months.
Right. So, what I hear you saying is that depending on your traffic, you have the ability to possibly do different things that's going to drive traffic than other stores that can't do those things, right? So you can grow organically versus having new people come into the store.
Yep. And
I do have a couple comments on what you were talking about, though. So, and this is a bit off topic, but you talked about having those service calls with customers, right? But kind of going back to what we were talking about for employees, is that you should be having those service talks, however you want to talk, just catch, off-topic conversations with your employees as well, right? We talk a lot about observations and things like that. Yeah. They're going to help with their basics and things like that. But if you don't have those regular conversations, just, person-to-person conversations, trying to get to know them on a regular basis as well, then you're never going to get past that work barrier. You know what I mean? You're never going to develop that person-to-person relationship with them that's going to drive their performance even higher. And I think that's a whole different topic, honestly.
No, and for me personally, I've never been a fan of telling my employees hey, you need to post this on your social media. And there's a number of reasons why. One of the biggest reasons, that's akin to telling somebody, okay, when you're at your home off the clock, I want you to work. Uh, obviously, legal ramifications as to why you don't want to do that. But there could be also contract obligations because they're not allowed to promote on this or that, right? Because it's not authorized by the company or authorized by the company you represent if you're a retailer or dealer or things like that. So that's where it starts getting into a lot of gray area that can have big ramifications that you just don't want to deal with. So I would tell them like, hey, I'm not going to stop you from, if you want to tell people that you work here to get their business, cool. But if you come at me while we're working and you tell me it's slow, all right, let's go down the list. Have we tried this? Okay, no. All right. Boom. Let's go ahead and do it. And as a leader, once again, you lead your people, you lead by example. So I would do 5 to 10 calls for them. And then I'd be like, all right, here's a list of 5. Go ahead and do them with me. I'm going to give you live, feedback.
Yeah.
And it makes them uncomfortable. Acknowledge that. Okay, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable because trust me, I've been uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable making these calls right now, but I'm still going to do it. Right. And then because after they do the first 1 or 2 calls, then it's like, okay, this isn't that big of a thing. Especially when guys, if you work phones for work for sales, this, the majority of people will not answer calls. You're going to get, if you call a list of 100 people, you might get 10, maybe 20% to pick up. The others might respond to maybe a voicemail, a text message, an email, whatever the case is, right? But that's just little things to keep in mind. Lead your team to do that by showing them what to do and having them take a little bit of ownership of what you're doing. But you got to break it down and make it easy. You got to give them something for them to be able to personalize. And that's what I used to do. I would give my team scripts that I have worked myself. And I'll tell them, I want you to learn this. I don't want you to repeat it word for word. I want you to understand it. And I want you to make it your own. Use words comfortable for you. Rephrase it however you want. But this is the general idea. All right.
Yeah, I definitely think that's important, man. When you said scripts, I've been in a lot of industries where they want you to follow a script, right? You have to say this, you have to say it this way. And, they really don't want you to deviate off of that. And, I fought it hard. But then I kind of, learned that I was fighting a losing battle. I just had to do it my way, right? Instead of going against the grain, I proved that my way was getting the jobs done, getting the results, right? And they didn't ask any questions. You know what I mean? I mean, they understood. I mean, eventually they asked me, "Hey, what are you doing?" Right? To have your success. And I would tell them, hey, look, I'm letting people be themselves and making the calls more comfortable. And, we were able to be successful in that sense.
Yeah. And guys, here's the thing about scripts. Scripts are good. I don't care what you say. A script is good. It's a starting point. The scripts that most companies use are actually foundational because it's worked for them. There's nothing that says that you need to do this. Like to your point, Joy, you need to say this verbatim. Now, if you don't have experience and you've never done it, do it verbatim, right? And you got to tell your people, do it verbatim because you need to understand it, right?
Right.
Ask me questions. And once you understand it and you're comfortable with the script, flip it and make it personal to you. Like, what words would you use instead of this? But this is the general tone. And because that script is going to drive you from point A, point B, point C,
right,
to what you want to be able to hit, whether it's getting an appointment, whether it's closing a deal, whether it's getting a follow-up call to be able to close a deal. It's going to get you there. And that's what those scripts are designed for. They're designed to get you through the process,
right,
for whatever that sales meeting is supposed to accomplish.
Well, I think also I think that the scripts, and this is with anything, right? There has to be the right timing of when you bring something up, right? If you call a client and they're super upset about actually, I'm having a horrible time with this, and this, you're not going to jump straight into your script, right? Because you're not listening to that person's request.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a way, and there is scripts to overcome that too. Like, don't get me wrong, that will get you back in line. But it goes back to, once again, my favorite sales quote, right? What is that? 60% of the time, it works every time. And that's what a script is. It's not a magic bullet. It's not going to work 100% of the time. But statistically, for whatever organization you're in, that is a script that has worked the best for them. Is it the best script? Guarantee you it's not. But it's the easiest script to follow, and it's the most adaptable. Is there a better script that can happen? Yes. Should scripts be updated? Yes. Should you have different scripts for different, to your point, like, dealing with upset customers? Yes. And it's going to take some time to learn them. But once you do, now they go from being a script to now you actually have a framework of where you can work and move around. And based on where it's going, you can adjust and go into the right direction and go from there. Because ultimately, that's going to be the biggest thing as a leader, is developing frameworks for your team to understand, to internalize and make their own, so that they have a system for success.
No, it's important, man. Like you were saying, it's just it's funny. Don't be flipping through pages while you're trying to find the right script, right? I mean, I've heard that when I've been on the other line, when somebody calls me or I call somebody, but most definitely, man, they have to know, when it's appropriate to use this kind of script, right? And eventually, as they get comfortable, as you do more role plays and observations, those people are going to get more comfortable in doing these things and not have to use that script, but they're still going to utilize the same framework, right?
Yep, the core ideas, the core principles.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is, right? I don't know if we'll do it on the next episode, but one of these upcoming episodes, we'll talk more about like systems, right? As far as like training systems, frameworks. There's a couple that I have that have helped me. I'll throw them out there for you guys. Joey, any that you have out there, right? We'll share them. Because all the stuff that I've built off of, I've made, yes, but the core principles have come from actual programs and research that I've looked into, I've participated in, that have helped shape, the way I look at things and the way I design things for my team to something that was going to work. It was adaptable, and it saw results in a very short period of time, which for my team as a leader, if you want something to stick, you got to bring those wins as soon as possible.
Right?
They got to come early and they got to come often. And that's the most important thing. And that's why scripts are utilized so much, and not just in sales, in a lot of different industries, because it gets to the crutch of what the conversations are, and it avoids a bunch of other stuff so that you can become more effective at what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, like, something that you hit on, man, is I'm a firm believer, and I wasn't always this way. Okay. But I'm a firm believer in that the things that you do were learned from somebody else.
Yep.
Or a situation that is very similar, right? It's not like you just magically came up with this framework of how you're going to do something. You weren't magically born a salesperson, right? But you were in an environment where you picked up things subconsciously, maybe, or consciously, and now you've adapted it to how you do things, right? So it's not that, like everything was born within you. It's the people that you expose yourself to is what you bring in, right? What you're around. So I'm definitely a believer in that.
And that's why it's important to bring the right people on board. But that's definitely a topic for another day, because we're getting to our mark, and that's definitely not going to be something we can cover in the next little bit. So I mean, with that said, definitely a great conversation today, man. I love our talks. We definitely get it riled up. Guys, if you got any comments, any questions, feel free, reach out to us, leave it in the comments. Love to hear what you guys have to say or what you're struggling with.
Yeah, agreed, man. I appreciate the viewership. We just want to make sure that we're talking about the things that's going to help you guys. So leave it in the comments.
All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next one.
All right, man. Later.
And that brings us to the end of today's Obvious Leadership episode. Remember, every great leader starts with one step, and you're already on your way. Small changes lead to significant impact. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, and remember that leadership is the key to unlocking extraordinary results.